Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are going to talk about four very, very important figures in the history of mysticism, Irfan, in the Islamic world, and because the main language of the works is Persian, in the Iranian side of the Islamic civilizations. I'm going to talk about Bayezid, Kharabani, Abul Hasan Kharabani, Ain al-Qazat Hamidani, and Jalaluddin Rumi. The reason I'm going first to talk about Yazid and then the others is the chronological development of the idea. I have something to remind you, and this is a very delicate matter. That is that during these lectures, I'm not going to prove something, I'm not going to refute something. We are not going to try to convince somebody. What we are going to do is to introduce some kind of intellectual paradigm which was created in Iran, which had a great effect on the whole Islamic civilizations. Bayezid is called Sultan al-Arifin, the kings of Urafa. First of all, it's good that I explain. I don't like the word Sufi in this kind of discussions, or Sufism. Even mysticism, because none of this will match what I want to talk about. I prefer the word Irfan. Irfan comes from Ma'rifah. Therefore, when I talk about Irfan, please do not refer in your mind towards different tariqas of this tariqa of Sufism, that tariqa. I don't want to touch that. And I want to say that these are right or wrong, because when this paradigm of thought has become institutionalized, that they create their own church, khanaqah, or they have chief and that, all of these institutionalized symbols, then in many corners of the idea, many things happen that it is not relevant to the main core. Therefore, when I'm talking about Irfan, I'm talking about the concepts, not the chain of the rituals or what they did, or its compatibility with that idea of Shi'i or that idea of Sunni or that. The concepts themselves are what I'm going to talk. Therefore, I use the word Irfan instead of mysticism or Sufism, come from Ma'rifah, deep knowledge. And I use the word Arif instead of Sufi or mystic. Arif, the one who knows deeply. I want to give some examples of the intellectual endeavors of Persian Muslim mystics in the course of Islamic civilization. We are not going to go through the theological investigation of their ideas. while it is crucial to go through in its separate place, but not here. So the question that theologically or jurisprudentially these ideas are right or wrong, this is not the matter we are going to talk. This is another topic. But what I want to say, to introduce this development, that this happened in the course of Islamic civilization. I don't want to say it is good or bad or wrong or right, but for you to study the different aspects of the manifestations of Islamic thought in Islamic civilization, I think it is crucial to go through that. This study will help us to see how some extreme mystic understandings were justified, designed, moderated, or balanced by the other mystic figures. That's clear. Before going to the figures themselves, I would like to have some introductory remarks that is so crucial to understand before we come to the main topic. As Dr. Shafiq Al-Kani expressed in his writings, I am in agreement with his kind of introduction and understanding in this case. Irfan or mysticism could be defined as an aesthetic or artistic understanding of theology and religion. Therefore, in any religion, whether that religion is true or false, we can have its irfan. In any religion, we can have its mystics. Because in the realm of the followers of any religion, there are some people who understand the theology of that religion artistically, aesthetically. They want to gauge its beauty. It is its beauty which touched them first. Therefore, some kind of zawqi, some kind of taste that they have in accordance with their artistic approach of that religion. This is what we call it here irfan. Because we do have different kind of understanding, different kind of artistic approach to anything, we have different kinds of irfan as well. And because of the conditions, cultural conditions or social conditions, which happens in each period of any civilization, this taste, this understanding, I mean the artistic understanding of religion, goes up and down according to the cultural situation of the whole society. Therefore, in the course of Islamic irfan, during last 14th century, or it is better to say 12th century of its creation, if we think that it was created, it was codified started to be codified in the 3rd century. Up to now, we see this kind of ascent or descent movement. Sometimes you see very, very high quality of language and introduction and understanding. Sometimes it is not that that good. It is relative, like any other artistic manifestation in the course of different periods of the history. You see, for example, in 18th century, in 16th century, 12th century, sometimes you have the climate, a special climate, the high points of some kind of, for example, paintings or poetry or music or things like that. And sometimes in some century you don't see that kind of high quality fruits. This is exactly in the case of Islamic mysticism. Therefore, we can say, according to what I mentioned already, RF, being RF is a relative matter. You can be an RF in a very, very high position or in a lower. May I define RF as somebody who discovers and gives shape to the ethical understanding of religion. Some people, like Bayezid, discover that taste and give shape to it through special language. Some people just look at what was shaped by them and taste some kind of meaning. For example, somebody like Beethoven created a piece of music. Others who listen to that and enjoy that, also in some degrees they are with Beethoven, but the rank is different. In the course of our understanding from religiosity, RF or Irfan will produce a special language, a special understanding from the kind of art of that theology. And some of them are like sun. For example, when we are sitting in this room and there are windows and there is a small portion of light here, in the noon, in the morning, in the evening, all of them are light. But when we go out and see the sun, that is different. Some figures are like sun, mean that they create the source of that understanding for us. Some people are living in the light of that kind of illuminative understanding. Another point that we should think of and we should know is that in the course of Irfan, in the course of art, in the course of the creation of this kind of paradigm, in this kind of language, when I talk about language, I don't mean wordings. No, I mean it's a wider meaning of language that you are familiar with. When we talk about language game, or when we talk about people like Ferdinand de Saussure or things like that, then their understanding of language when I'm talking about language. In this realm, we cannot categorize what is stories in this history and what is the reality. When we talk about Bayezid or Rumi, we cannot differentiate that much. That these things which is said about them in different sources or among people, which of these portions of information are stories, which of them are realities? We cannot differentiate that much. Because this is true in any case that you're talking about the history of art, in any period of civilization. For example, when you listen to Bayezid and he said that قلبي شناخت, I should read in Persian, some of you. Who knows, who understands some Persian here? Okay. قلبی شناخته شده و شهودی گم شده و من در غیبت محضورم و در شهود موجود. This language will introduce images which is completely new when you come to the realm of understanding the theology of Islamic theology. I come to explain this sentence later on. Therefore, mystical experience in that meaning, the experiences of Orafa, like any other aesthetic one, is a personal matter. It is a personal matter. It is not transferable to anybody. And it is not repeatable, even for him. Like any creativity, any act of creation in the field of art. That is an experience that artist himself will go through, and it may not be repeated, even for him. It cannot transfer this talent to the other. Beethoven cannot transfer that special language which is in his mind to express himself in the course of music for the others. All characteristics of art can be found in Irfan, like imagination, symbolism, symbolic expressions, and multifaceted meaningfulness of any element. Any element of art can have multifaceted meaning. Any element of Irfan can have different meanings. This is the reason I'm saying that here. I'm going only to introduce that. We are not going to defend it or refute it. The words right or wrong are not capable here to help us to describe the scene. We don't have right or wrong here. What we may have is beauty and ugliness. Something is beautiful or not. The question that this is right or wrong is another thing. Therefore, if you think of these introductory remarks that I already made, language is the most important factor. Language carries the main role in RF's creativity. And RF, when we want to be creative, if its creativity is in a high position, the language comes with it is very high. Therefore, I believe that what we say hal, you know the word hal? In the state of the spirit. Is a Persian, in Persian language we say, my hal means my state of feeling, my hal, my mood, my spiritual mood. And opposite to that is qal, means what we say, our wordings. Therefore, a transcendental hal, when you have a very high mood, a spiritual mood, it comes with a transcendental qal. Those who believe I cannot accept that some people believe that you may have a very, very high quality of hal and express it with a low level of language. This is absurd. If hal wants to be manifested in language, the qal, the wording, is in the same level of quality with the spiritual mood. This is Jalaluddin Rumi's explanation. When I come to that, I will explain this more. Now, to give an example, what do I mean? Jalaluddin, in one of his ghazals, says that ای طایران قدس را عشقت فزوده بالها در حلقه روحا در حلقه سودای تو روحانیان را حالها فکری بودست افعالها خاکی بودست این مالها قالی بودست این حالها حالی بودست این قالها. He said that what we think, what we feel, is another side of the coin of what our wordings are called, our language. And on the other hand, our language is a manifestation of our hal. Another place, Jalaluddin Rumi said that سخنم مست و دلم مست و صفتهای تو مست همه بر هم دگر افتادیم و در هم نگران سخنم مست شود از صفتی و صد بار از زبانم به دلم آید و از دل به زبان. Said that this is my drunken words. My drunken words are traveling between my heart and my tongue all together in this period. Therefore you cannot differentiate between which portion is hal, which portion is qal. If we think of these elements already mentioned, then Bayazid is definitely a very high example, whose transcendental hal is beautifully manifested in his very, very high quality of language, which goes through the barriers of grammar of Persian language. In fact, he has been creating his own grammar for that. You know what I'm enjoying very much now? Do you know? You don't know? I think I'm a very successful teacher. You know why? Because the final results of all of these talks and teaching and things is that people find some calm in their spirit. And our friend was napping so good because of my speech. So I'm a very successful one because this is the final result. That we should go to a very good spiritual realm. Okay. Bayazid is definitely one of the very rare figures who created this language of Irfan. And that is the reason he is called Sultan al-Arifin. And therefore, anybody who wants to study the history of mysticism in the Islamic civilization, especially in Iran, you cannot avoid studying Bayazid. Abu Yazid Tayfur ibn Isa ibn Surushan. As you see, his grandfather was Surushan. This is a Zoroastrian name. His grandfather was Zoroastrian. and his father became Muslim. But you can see easily that on the area that the grandfather is Zoroastrian, and the name is Surumshan, is a very, very pure Persian word. So you can see that the environment was still in the Zoroastrian understanding, that area. By the way, you know Bastam, that Bayezid comes, and his grave is there now. When you go from Tehran to Mashhad, just almost in the middle way, there is a town called Shahrud, which is my town. And Bayezid is Bastam, is just attached to Shahrud. In the old time, the main local area was Bastam. Now it is Shahrud, but they are connected together. I can feel that when you go to Bastam now, after 1,200 years, you can imagine that what was that environment 1,200 years ago. And Bayezid, as someone who didn't go to a school, and his grandfather was Zoroastrian, in a small village, small town, how did he create this language is a mystery. In the wording, in the language of Bayezid and great mystics after him, you come to phrase it that we call it shathiyat. Shathiyat. Shathiyat, or shat, the singular, shat is a very complex, artistic, emotional proposition. It is completely artistic, aesthetic, an artistic and emotional proposition. And it is paradoxical, usually. Usually it is paradoxical. If you go to the history of Shathiyat, for example, Bayezid is the first one who created that kind of language. We heard from him that he said, Subhani ma a'zamu shani. Oh, I'm so clean and pure, like God. Subhan is the attribute for God. Subhani, when we say in our prayer to God, Subhanallah, say Subhani. Ma a'zamu shani. Nothing is higher than my position. What does this mean theologically? Is it right or wrong? For some people, it is nonsense. It is absurd. How a small creature like Bayezid, how a drop of water can claim that I am the ocean and there is not any ocean bigger than me or more pure than me. So from this kind of logic, this kind of approach, this is nonsense. Some people find it nonsense. Some people find it as something which contains the highest subtle meaning of the relation between God and human. Which one is correct? We cannot prove. We cannot argue. Either your understanding is that or not. I think there is no room for any endeavor to prove its rightness or wrongness. It may be like a symphony of Beethoven or Bach. When you listen, somebody enjoys it, somebody doesn't. You cannot go more than that. Some people like it, find deep meaning in that, and they will transcend their spirit because of that. Some people, they're tired of that. This is nonsense. Or when you come to Hallaj. So this sentence we call it Shatr, which is emotional, paradoxical, artistic, and complex. Or you come, Bayezid died in 234, or in another sources, another source 261. But probably 234 is more correct, which is 3rd century, the first half of the 3rd century. In the up to 2nd century, in the Islamic civilization, we don't see this kind of language. We don't see. This was kufr if somebody used it in the 1st century, for example, in Basra, or in Baghdad, or in Kufa, or somewhere, or in Medina. It is from